Sustainable development. You hear that phrase everywhere, right? From corporate boardrooms to global summits. But what if the way we all think about it is missing a huge piece of the puzzle? Today, we're going to dig into what sustainable development really means and uncover a massive debate that's hidden just beneath the surface.
So let's just jump right in. What is sustainable development? The common definition seems pretty straightforward, but it's built on a foundation that, well, it really deserves a much closer look. Okay, first up, the famous definition. This is pretty much ground zero for the whole conversation. And here it is. This is the line you'll see quoted most often coming from the Brundtland Commission. It's this really powerful idea about being fair to the people who come after us. But what does it actually mean in practice? What does it ask us to do?
It really boils down to two key concepts. First, this idea of needs, and specifically putting the essential needs of the world's poorest people front and center. And second, this idea of limits, recognizing that our planet doesn't have an infinite supply of resources. So it's really this balancing act between our human needs and our planet's boundaries.
So this idea didn't just stay in some academic report. No way. It pretty quickly became the foundation for a global framework.
And you can really see its influence grow over time. Back in 2010, it became a central pillar for social work around the world. But the huge moment, the real game changer, was in 2015. That's when the United Nations adopted the 2030 Agenda, and just like that, sustainable development became a shared mission for pretty much the entire planet.
The UN's 2030 Agenda, which you probably know through the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, was incredibly ambitious. It tried to weave together economic development, social progress, and protecting the environment all into one single, universal plan for everybody. Part 3. The Growth Conundrum. Now, all of that sounds like a fantastic plan, right? But if you look a little closer, you start to see a fundamental conflict.
Because a growing number of critics are looking at this mainstream approach and saying, hold on a second. They believe there's a massive flaw not in the goal itself, but in the engine we're trying to use to get there.
This quote really gets to the heart of it. The argument is that the official version of sustainable development, the one the UN is pushing, is still completely trapped inside a system that demands constant economic growth, the very system that many would argue caused the environmental problems in the first place.
And this really lays out the two competing worldviews so clearly. On the left, you've got the mainstream idea, like the UN's goals, which tries to achieve sustainability within our current economic model of constant growth. But the eco-social view on the right says that's basically impossible. It argues that the only real path forward is to completely transform the system and even embrace something called a degrowth approach, because that hunger for endless growth is the problem.
So, let's look at part 4, an alternative worldview. What does this other vision actually look like?
Now, when you hear the term degrowth, it's easy to think it just means making everyone poorer, but that's not it at all. It's about a complete paradigm shift. It's about saying, hey, maybe endless economic growth shouldn't be our number one goal. Instead, we should focus directly on things like human well-being and ecological health, and let the economy serve those goals, not the other way around.
So this alternative view lays out a pretty clear pathway. The very first step, it argues, has to be mental, shifting our whole worldview away from this automatic assumption that growth is always good. Once you start to question that, then you can actually start building new ways of organizing society that don't depend on it. For proponents of this view, this is the only way to get to what they would call real sustainability and climate justice.
And that leaves us with the massive question at the heart of this whole debate. Can we really have infinite economic growth on a planet with very finite resources? Or does getting to a truly sustainable future mean we have to fundamentally rethink what words like development and progress even mean? That is the conundrum we all have to face.